Hello and welcome back to the Northern Lights Sportscast. I'm Nate, and here with me today I have Cody and Dash joining us today after a couple episode absence. Welcome back, and today we are going to chat about the first weekend of the NCAA tournament and give kind of our predictions here on what we think is going to happen next weekend. We're going to start now with the South region. Over the weekend, quite a few things happened in the South, and I'm going to pop up a couple of videos here on screen about a couple of the big events. Probably the biggest event anyone could probably say was when Princeton here beat Arizona in the first round to knock out a prominent pick in the bracket. I mean, this was one of the games that knocked out some hundreds of thousands of brackets. But such a good day for Princeton. I mean, in the Ivy League. I know when I was watching on TV or over the weekend, the last time an Ivy League team had won a game in March Madness was back in 2010. What did you guys think of the game that watched it?
It was probably a very good, even matched game. I thought it was pretty close. I sadly didn't get to watch it in real time. I was at work, but I would say Princeton played one hell of a game and knew what to do to beat out the number 2 seed right away, which just emotionally hurt my bracket just because if you go back to last week's episode, Arizona was the team I had to win it all. So, sorry, Arizona. I might have jinxed you.
And this just really adds to a legacy of kind of underachieving for this Arizona basketball program. I mean, considering they were, as you mentioned, to a lot of people, possibly a championship contender this year, as in certain previous years, and they just did not show up on offense at all in this game. Only 55 points in the entire game, and that just speaks for itself right there to an Ivy League school. I mean, Princeton hasn't exactly been known for their offense this season. I mean, and they didn't show a lot of it in this game either. They only had 59 points, but the fact that Arizona was only held to 55 was the reason that they lost this game.
Yeah. Yep, and then if that wasn't enough, then Princeton came out a couple of days later and managed to somehow beat Missouri in the second round.
Hey, if they keep running hot, they might make it all the way to the Final Four. But first, they got to get past Creighton, and that's a pretty good basketball team right there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that'll be.
I will say Princeton looked a lot better in their second game than they did in their first one. I mean, they just handled that game against Missouri, and yes, you could argue Missouri was almost as good of a team as Arizona because there was a lot of the points this year where they were in the top 3 in the SEC throughout the season. So, yeah, I mean, Princeton definitely earned that victory.
Yeah.
Well, they won 78-63. That's a pretty big margin for a winning total.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I'm seeing here, when the final seconds and minutes ticked away, I mean, I was looking at everybody around me watching and just going, is this really happening? I mean, Princeton, we're going to have a third straight year that a 15th seed is going to make the Sweet 16 because last year it was St. Peter's and the year before that was Oral Roberts. So, gosh, what a run. Because I don't know if anyone knows this off the top of their head, but before the Oral Roberts Cinderella with the Sweet 16, before that, it had only happened once that a 15th seed had ever...
the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, and they had ever made the Sweet 16, right? That was what it was, or was it that they had won a game? Because they'd won a game before, yeah.
Yeah, first, the only one before these last 3 to make the Sweet 16.
Yeah. Oh, what a weekend. And then in the South, if it wasn't already enough, then we had the big upset that I know Cody and I talked about last week. That we had a feeling that Furman was going to be able to upset Virginia, but the way in which it happened, I don't think anyone could have written it any better. Because I have it pulled up here, and to watch this again, Virginia gets the pass in, gets it down the court. Yep, he just heaves it. Furman gets the shot with 4 seconds to go.
And they still have a timeout.
Yes, and that's what I was going to get to. I mean, this has to be one of the biggest coaching and player gaffes in all sports history. I mean, this kind of the way that the sort of went down, in a sense, kind of reminds me of what happened with the Raiders Patriots game at the end of that game last year.
Yes.
But I mean, yeah, and like Cody said, they had a timeout left. Either that, even if you don't take the timeout, just I mean, at the very least, you turn the ball over, but you don't let them score right off the bat with it.
Well, this is kind of Virginia's second time having an embarrassing March Madness in recent history.
Oh, that's not the second. That's the third.
Third? Okay.
Yep, they're 1-3 in their last 4 first-round games.
Okay. Well, I was going to say they were the number 1 overall seed and then lost it to UNBC for the first time ever, 16 seed beating a 1 seed. And
I don't know if this is going to go down as a worse loss than that one. I mean, to be fair, at least they won the championship the year after that happened.
Yes.
So maybe win the championship next year now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You might have to watch out for them because last time they had an embarrassing first round loss, they came back and won the whole thing. So,
yeah, well, we'll see. So, but now looking at the larger bracket, I just wanted to quickly highlight here what are the last 4 teams remaining out of the South, and that would be the number 1 overall seed, Alabama, the 5 seed, San Diego State, the 6 seed in Creighton, and then obviously the 15 seed in Princeton. Gosh, what a interesting collection of teams. Definitely, probably a few of them we could have predicted. As we already talked about, though, at length, Princeton definitely did not. But looking back at kind of all the results here, I mean, I know people had predicted the San Diego State and Charleston game to go differently. Cody, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, I just remember a lot of people were saying Charleston might be the very upset pick in this bracket. That turned out to be wrong. Charleston kind of, I don't remember the final score. Just a second.
It was 63-57, San Diego State.
So it was a close game, but Charleston couldn't figure it out at the end, and San Diego State then goes on and kind of a second.
San Diego State's going to play Alabama in the
yes, but I'm looking for their second round.
Furman.
Yeah, they beat Furman.
Yeah, they destroyed Furman in the second round, so they have a really high. They're up in the high right now, feeling like they probably have a very good chance to beat Alabama. But they got to remember this is the number 1 seed overall, and usually the number 1 seed overall for the tournament is like a Final Four pick for sure, but you never know.
Yeah, and then another team in the South that I feel like kind of fell short of their ultimate goal was Baylor. I mean, they did a good job handling UCSB, but then they ran into Creighton and they just had no answers for that. And just the Big 12 as a whole, it seems like this March Madness is kind of disappointed.
Which just sucks. I watched the Big 12 for like a month, and they had very good teams, and they had a bunch of teams in this tournament. But out of the Big 10, is there even one team still in?
The Big 10 has one team. Texas. I believe the Big 12 has
Texas.
2 teams left.
They have Texas and Kansas State. So 2 teams out of all their teams that made it are out. TCU's gone. Kansas is gone already.
Well, we'll recap the rest of them later.
I'm going to get more when we get to them.
Yeah, but definitely what I was going to mention is I had thought that Maryland could have had a better shot in the Alabama game than they ended up getting. So I know I was kind of surprised at how flat they looked playing Alabama. But Alabama is the number 1 overall seed, much to the chagrin of Cody and I. But but yeah, the Big 10 they did get a lot of, I guess, more middle seeds this year than normal. But gosh, I thought a couple of them could have gone a little further.
Especially Iowa State.
Iowa State's not a Big 10 team, but...
I thought you said Big 12. My bad. Sorry.
But, guys, final thoughts before we make our picks here.
I feel like the Alabama and San Diego State is probably going to be a very interesting match. San Diego State, after their recent 2 victories, are probably, again, on a high. And I think they could have a chance to upset that number 1 overall seed.
All right. Dash, you got anything before we make our picks here?
Not really. I'm more than ready to make my pick.
All right. Then I'll let you go first. Who do you think's going to win the South region here and make the Final Four?
So first things first, with these two games that are coming up, you got Alabama and San Diego State. I mean, San Diego State has had a quietly pretty good basketball program for the better part of a decade now, and this has been one of their better shots to make a deep run. But unfortunately, I just don't see them being able to get past Alabama. So I see Alabama cruising past San Diego State in this game. And then meanwhile, the other Cinderella story, Princeton, I feel like this is where the clock strikes midnight. I mean, Creighton has been a very good team all year. I mean, the 60 doesn't really say as much as they played this year. They have played very well this year, and I think that Creighton might have the best shot of being Alabama out of all the teams in the South that are left, but I don't know if it's going to be done. I think Alabama's going to come out of the South and get to the Final Four.
Okay. Yeah, my picks will be very similar here. I mean, except for the fact that, I am going to pick an upset over Alabama. Alabama's not going to be playing just a little bit away from their hometown. They played the regional in Alabama in Birmingham, just a little ways away from Tuscaloosa. So when they have to travel to the regional, which is in Louisville, Kentucky, I don't think they'll have as much of an advantage there. So I think San Diego State's got a shot, and I'm going to say San Diego State's going to reach the Elite Eight. And then I am going to pick Creighton over Princeton. Yeah, Princeton they've had quite the run, but I do think it'll come to an end in the Sweet 16. And then I would then pick Creighton to reach the Final Four out of the South. Cody, you're up next.
I really want to pick that upset over Alabama, but sadly I don't see San Diego State pulling it out at the end unless it's like a final three-pointer shot, and that usually does not end well with me if I'm hoping for a team to have a last-minute three-pointer. So I'm sadly going to have to pick Alabama into the Elite Eight, and also same as Dash and you, Nate, I'm going to pick Creighton to get to the Elite Eight and face Alabama for that South Championship of the region. And I'm sadly, it hurts my heart to say this, but Alabama's going to the Final Four.
All right, so now we are going to head over to the Midwest region. I don't know. I would say not nearly as an eventful weekend in the Midwest, especially when you look here at those that are the last four remaining in the Midwest. People could have predicted this. I know Cody is going to be happy with how this ended up. Just to recap this before I show the bracket, the remaining seeds in the Midwest are the number 1 seed Houston, the 5 seed Miami, the 3 seed in Xavier, and the 2 seed in Texas. Cody, give us a little kind of rundown here on how the Midwest played out over the weekend.
Well, like you said, it's kind of a not a very shocking as like this is the only bracket that has a top all the top 5 teams from the top 5 are still in it. The with Houston being 1, Xavier 3 and 2, and then Miami knocked off the 4th seed, I believe, in that
Yeah, they knocked
second
off
round game.
Indiana.
Yeah, they knocked off Indiana in the second round there. So it's not very surprising. Probably a lot of people got this bracket right with those picks. But Houston struggled, though, in that second round game against Auburn. They struggled there in that first half of the game. Auburn had not a convincing lead going into halftime, but it still was a lead, and a lot of people were kind of shocked and also probably see Houston not even making it to the Final Four anymore with them getting upset either by Texas or Xavier. But it's nice they're still in it, and now they have their next opponent. Miami is a pretty good team. They've really turned it around this year and have a very good chance in getting to that Final Four for the first time in a very long time. Xavier has always been a pretty good basketball team from the Big East, as I predicted they would get to the championship game, and they are still in it. And I have really hope they are going to make it past Texas, but Texas has shown that they are a pretty good team. They've beaten Penn State, who destroyed Texas A&M in that first round game, and Texas kind of just handled Penn State in that second round, and we're that's where we're at.
I mean,
Yeah.
Cody, you were talking about Houston's second round game being bad. Their first round game against Northern Kentucky was way worse. I mean, in the second half, they couldn't buy a bucket to save their lives, and the only reason they won that game is because Northern Kentucky kept consistently trying to make 3-point shots, even though they couldn't make one. I think at the end of the night, they were like, I want to say it was like 4 of 38 from three.
That sounds
So yeah,
about right.
it was. That's the only reason that Houston won that first round game. That's why I'm even surprised they got past Auburn.
And then, of course, I'm going to come in here and say, well, of course they got past Auburn. They're destined to get all the way there.
I don't.
Hey,
think
they
so.
want to play in their
I really
hometown.
don't think so.
I
That first round game showed me that this team is. I don't think this team's gonna make it all the way.
I don't know.
But
This team's got a longer story than just the first round. Yeah, they played terribly in that first round, but a key stat, their best player that was out. I don't want to say his name because I think I'll butcher it, but he only had 5 points in that first game. Now he was playing with an injury, which I don't really see why their coach ended up doing that. But then he comes back in the second round and drops, I want to say, around 20 points over Auburn that helped them win that game, especially in the second half. So I think that was the difference there. Is their best player actually played well in the second round game versus the first round.
are you talking about Marcus Sasser?
Yes. Yep.
Yep, Marcus
Yeah.
Sasser.
Sasser. Yep. Yeah, he got injured
Sass.
in the ACC or ACC American tournament. So
Semifinals.
yeah. Yeah, and he
But
didn't
another
play in the
team-
championship.
Another team though that I really want to dunk on from this area of the bracket is Iowa State. That was one of the most pathetic
Yeah.
March Madness performances I've ever seen out of any team ever. That was horrible, considering against a first four team like Pitt, and they only scored 2 points in the first 10 minutes of the game. That was just atrocious when it came to offense, and they only ended up scoring 41 points. So that just shows you how bad their day was.
Yeah, I saw that score going on, and I just had a pit in my stomach because for those of you that remember, last week I may have picked Iowa State to run all the way to the Elite Eight and play Houston in that game. That's
I know
not
Cody was
going
pretty
to
high on
happen.
them too.
Yeah, that was a pick I was shocked by in that podcast.
Yeah, well,
But-
we'll talk about that one in their region, but I just didn't think that they'd be able to get upset by any of the first four teams. But one thing that I was saying after that game all weekend was, anytime that you're playing a team that's just come off of a win in the last couple of days, they can be dangerous to any team. And if you happen to have a bad day, they're going to take advantage because they're probably not nearly as cold as you are.
The thing is, though, with Iowa State, they have not had an offense for a while. And this team even dates back to last year in the tournament. They barely snuck by Wisconsin in the tournament because their defense basically saved their bacon. And that was kind of the same thing this year. They had a lot of games where they didn't score a lot of points this year, and their defense had to bail them out. Unfortunately, their offense was so bad, their defense couldn't bail them out if they wanted to in this game.
Yeah. Now, I know I want to highlight another team, and that team would be Penn State. And I guess kind of pat them on the back a little bit for how their run went. This run really, I'm going to say, extends further than the NCAA tournament. This run extends back into the Big Ten tournament when they won as a 10 seed all the way into the tournament championship game. That virtually gave them the seed they have right now in the they had this year in the NCAA tournament. So they had quite the run. I know I had kind of thought that they were going to beat Texas and move on to the Sweet 16, but oh well, they still had a good year. I would not be too upset if I were Penn State fans that they lost to Texas. Texas is definitely a better team than I know I expected them to be in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, even though they got eliminated, they're definitely one of the Big Ten teams that didn't disappoint this year, I will say.
Yeah, I mean they beat down. They
Unlike
were one of the
Purdue.
few lower seeded teams that beat down on their first round opponent. So,
Yep.
Cody, what were you gonna say?
Unlike Purdue.
Yeah,
We'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah,
I
we'll
mean,
get
but
to
looking
that.
at this side of the bracket too, you also have Indiana. I mean, I really thought Indiana was going to make it a little bit further than this, but I guess Miami just had an answer for that.
Well, Miami's had like a very good season. They were the first seed overall in the ACC tourney. Sure, they didn't win it all, but they still had a great season.
that first round game though against Drake that they were looking very beatable for most of that game. They didn't really even get control of that game until the final few minutes.
And my Cinderella story didn't come true. I picked Drake to be my Cinderella out of this tournament, and they disappointed me.
I
So
mean, Drake controlled that game pretty much until about 4 minutes to go.
yeah,
Yeah.
I had high hopes till those 4 minutes. It just kind of hurt how they lost that game.
All right. Now we're going to make our picks here. I know I'll go first here to get this thing started. I'm actually going to pick Houston to beat Miami because I feel like right now that's probably the underdog pick. I'm pretty sure I feel like everybody's picking Miami right now because they don't believe in Houston anymore. So I'm going to pick Houston because after that game, I think they might start to go on a roll here. And beat Miami and make it to the Elite Eight. And in the Elite Eight, they're going to play Xavier. I'm going to take a page out of Cody's book. They're going to play Xavier. And yes, I do think Houston will beat Xavier and go to the Final Four. Cody, you're up next.
Well, I think so. Out of this region, my Elite Eight can still very much happen because my Elite Eight from the last podcast was Houston versus Xavier. And I think, like you, Nate, that I think since they had pretty much a week break, Houston's going to come back stronger and maybe beat Miami. Not like destroy them or smack them, but I would say Houston has. I would pull it out and win. And I would also, I'm going to keep with my team that I think was my underdog to get to the championship, Xavier, and I think they will still make their run to the
As
league.
the immortal Lee Corso says on College Game Day, not so fast, you guys. I personally think right now Houston does not have the same energy that they had in the regular season, and Miami has played some pretty darn good games. As much as I really don't like to admit it because I'm not a big fan of Miami, but I will admit that they are on a good run right now. And I'm not saying that Houston can't win this game. If they play up to their potential, they will handle Miami easily. But considering right now, I don't think Houston's going to be able to do it. I'm going to go Miami. And then, meanwhile, for Xavier in Texas, I'm going to go with Texas right now. Xavier, it wouldn't surprise me if Xavier won at all. I mean, they've had a great season. They've had some good games right now. But considering that Texas did beat one of the hottest teams in the tournament right now in Penn State, I think I'm going to give the little nod there to Texas. And the team that comes out of this area of the bracket, I'm going to go with Texas. I think Texas will be able to beat Miami.
All right.
I forgot to say I'm going to keep my Xavier pick to the Final Four. So.
All right. Now on we charge to the West region. While this one did have some interesting games too, not as much I would say not as much in the first round exactly because looking at, the remaining four teams here, the 8th seeded Arkansas Razorbacks lead the pack.
All the higher seeds won in the first round of this area of the bracket.
Yeah, yep. And then the 4th seed Yukon Huskies, the 3 seed Gonzaga Bulldogs, and the 2 seed UCLA Bruins. This bracket, yet again, just the only reason I'm not saying this one's crazy is because we've had 2 other crazy regions in this bracket already. So
our best chance for an upset in the first round was probably Arizona State and TCU won that one on a buzzer beater.
Yeah.
I was going to say when I saw that all the top seeds won in the first round, I was going to say this is my least interesting bracket from this for the whole March Madness tournament. It was just like, oh, yay, no upsets.
Until Arkansas beat Kansas.
Yes, then I was like, now it's become more interesting. So
yeah.
But I have high hopes for my Huskies. I picked them to get to the Final Four. But after Arkansas's big upset there, they might have a difficult challenge up ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Go ahead, Dash.
The thing is with this area of the bracket right now, all the second round games except for one were decided by 5 points or less. So that makes things kind of complicated for me heading into the Sweet 16 here on this area of the bracket.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know one team that's kind of always one that everyone has a magnifying glass on is Gonzaga. And they had kind of a rough first round game, even though they did win by 12. I mean, that game was a little closer than people kind of thought it would be. Grand Canyon was in that game for some of it. So, and then against TCU, they were down at half. So, And then finally in the second half, the rest of their team found their shot. I know because I watched this game, but the team found their shot, and I know they only won by a few, but they I don't know. I think Gonzaga might be able to go a little while now. I don't know if they'll go all the way, but they'll be able to go a while.
Speaking of TCU, my that is the second team out of my Elite Eight from the last show to fall out, and it that I don't know what I was thinking after that night seeing TCU play against Gonzaga. It was a close game, but Gonzaga's kind of knows what they're doing when they're in March Madness, unless it's getting to the championship game.
Well, they do have
usually can't
six-year
get
senior
there.
Drew Timme, so
Yeah.
One thing I should mention quick before I say my piece on this part. My championship prediction was UCLA and Duke, and UCLA, it kind of surprised me a little bit that second round game that they had against Northwestern. I expected them to cruise right past Northwestern, and it was only a 5-point game. So that makes me a little nervous for my championship pick in the future.
yeah, I mean,
Especially since you already lost the other team.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we'll get to that later, mister.
especially
What happened to your
mentioning.
championship team, huh?
Shut up.
But I mean, you guys were speaking of your championship picks and stuff. I mean, my West predictions were Kansas and UCLA, and Kansas is gone, but UCLA is still there. And yeah, I had UCLA going all the way and winning the whole thing. So I don't know. I'm kind of shaking in my boots, but I don't know. Some of these teams, they'll have a close game and then they'll have a really really good game the next game. So I don't know.
Well,
Kinda
like I
hard
had
to
mentioned,
predict.
everybody won by a close margin except for UConn. They beat St. Mary's by 15. Everybody else, it was a very close game.
Yeah, which I want to say something about that game. That really surprised me. I didn't think UConn was going to blow out St. Mary's, but I guess the Gales did not come to play that day. Then again, I was also surprised at how badly they lost to Gonzaga in the WCC championship game. So
Yeah, I was
St.
going to
Mary's
say.
offense seemed to run out of steam once they hit the tournament. They only had 63 in the first round and 55 in the second.
Well, even in the conference tournament, they usually run out. Like they'll play the one game, win it, and then in the championship, they just don't show up most of the time if it's playing against Gonzaga.
yeah, I guess they just accept the at-large bid.
But I had my final two was UConn and TCU. I already made my piece with TCU, but UConn, I really have some high hopes in getting to that Final Four. I kind of see them as a good upset of the winner between Gonzaga and UCLA. But first, it's with Arkansas. I would say Arkansas is a pretty good team. They just beat Kansas. Was it by 5 dash, like you said, or
by one?
It was by
Okay.
one. Yeah.
So yeah, Arkansas just had the big upset, and they're probably not a team to be trifled with anymore, as people didn't really give them much respect against Kansas. So
They're not gonna like me then when I say that. I don't know if they're gonna. I don't know. It could be really close against UConn, or it could be a really bad game for Arkansas and they get blown out.
I'm not saying like I'm not trying to say where like UConn's going to get destroyed or anything, but I'm just going to say Arkansas is probably going to give them a good game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Other than that, yeah, I was disappointed too, along with you, Cody, that the first round went to chalk in this side of the bracket. It's weird that you say that you're disappointed that it all went exactly at expectations, because in this tournament everything goes crazy. So anytime something goes exactly as planned, it's of course boring. I mean, we've been treated all these upsets over the last several years in this tournament alone too, and then to not see any until the second round was weird.
There's sometimes though I remember watching March Madness that the Elite Eight are like one time from one side of the bracket was all the top four teams, and I was just like, that's yay, cool. And that was just kind of disappointing, because I think after that too, both the one seeds made it to the Final Four, and it was just like, so yeah, it was predictable. That's awesome. I like the craziness of it. I like upsets.
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody who watches this loves watching the upsets.
As crazy as it is, though, it is nice. Or obviously, each team that wins, I do feel happy for them, no matter how much I may dislike them, like the team or the school or whatever.
Like Alabama, congrats to you. You're doing very well.
Yeah,
I just don't want you to win.
yeah, because you're good enough at football already. So, I mean, a team that I always look at is Gonzaga. I mean, they're a team that gets a lot of heat just because of kind of the failings they have when it gets to the later stages of the tournament. They
Well, I
just
just don't
can't get all
understand.
the
How does
way
this team not have a championship in like the last 15 years from this
because they've
core that
made how
from
many
the
already?
beginning?
They've made how many championships already? At least like three or four, and they
Well, I
haven't
was gonna
won any
say
of them.
they
I don't
made
even
it
think
to
there's
like the
that many.
Final Four a lot, but they, like I last year when they were ranked as the number one overall, excuse me, I had them go to the Final Four, but then get upset because it's going like this is Gonzaga. They haven't even won a championship yet. They usually choke it at the end if it was either the championship or the Final Four.
Yeah,
Their best chance was in the 2021 season, and they failed in the championship
yeah, exactly. But
And they barely got to the championship game.
game.
They had to
Yep, buzzer
make
beater.
it on a last buzzer beater
yeah.
by Suggs.
Now, one last team I do want to highlight before we make our picks, but let's just talk briefly about Kansas. Something that kind of went under the radar of a lot of people's radar in this tournament and in the Big 12 tournament. Their coach, Big Bill Self, has been having some health issues, so he has not been with the team in a little while now. He
I
did
didn't know
not
that.
coach either of their games in the NCAA tournament, and I don't believe he coached their last two games in the Big 12 tournament.
No,
Um,
he hoped to be back by the time the tournament came around, but unfortunately he wasn't able to. Had surgery to unclog arteries in his heart.
Yeah, so of course our best wishes to him in his recovery. Hopefully he can come back and coach Kansas for plenty of more seasons. As you know, looking at all the coaches that have retired recently, I don't really want to say goodbye to another legendary coach yet. I'd like to see them go a little longer, as we've had quite a few coaches leave in the past few years. So
The guy at is the guy at North Carolina still around or no?
no, he retired a couple years ago already. They've had a new coach now for this is his second or third year.
And Syracuse, Duke. I mean, it's just all of them are changing now.
Yeah.
Well, we still got Izzo,
Yep. Yep.
sadly.
Don't worry,
But
we're
we
gonna go
still
over
got
them
Izzo.
next. But yeah, I'm gonna start with Dash this time. You can start with your picks for the West Regional.
All right. First for the first game of Gonzaga and UCLA, I think I'm gonna make this sound obvious. I don't think it'll be an easy win, but I'm gonna go with UCLA. I mean, I had them in my championship game, but also, it's just that time of year again for Gonzaga. I feel like their luck's gonna run out. They're gonna run into a team that they can't beat, and this is just another march for Gonzaga. And then meanwhile, UConn and Arkansas. This one I'm really 50-50 about. I honestly don't know who's gonna win this game. I mean, I think if things go right for either team, that either of them could easily win it. I really don't know. Honestly, you know what? Oh no, I was gonna say I was gonna do a coin flip by putting the coins away. All right, you know what? One thing. Let's go with the higher seed, and I'll go with UConn.
Ah, chicken. You should pick up the upset if it's a 50-50 all the time.
Well, you can go next then, Cody.
Well, I had high hopes for UConn all at the beginning of this bracket, so I'm going to keep them going and have them not destroy Arkansas, but it would be a very close game. But UConn will kind of win it out. But then I'm going to give Gonzaga one more game. Now I'm going to say they will beat UCLA by maybe a last second buzzer beater, but then UConn will move on to the Final Four, beating Gonzaga, and Gonzaga chokes again.
Interesting. Yeah, mine's not going to sound much more interesting than those. Yeah, I would definitely say, out of the teams that are left, UConn's probably going to make it to the Elite Eight. I'm going to stick with my pick that I did last time. UCLA is going to make it, although I did not initially envision they'd be playing Gonzaga in the Sweet 16. That's, like everybody's mentioned, that's going to be a very, very tough matchup. At least we think it's going to. Watch it be a complete blowout instead. But
For Gonzaga, or however you say it.
but I believe UCLA is going to make the Elite Eight, and then they are going to beat UConn and advance to the Final Four. Yeah, so I don't know. I think my pick might still stand here, but we'll find out. On we charge to our last region today, and that's going to be the East region. In the East, the last four teams we have are ninth seeded Florida Atlantic, 4th-seeded Tennessee, 3rd-seeded Kansas State, and 7th-seeded Michigan State. And yes, we are going to kick this one off with the upset of probably this, or even more than the UMBC one, the upset of the century.
Really?
FDU over Purdue, because it was technically the most improbable upset.
By points favored. Yeah, Purdue had a higher favorability in this one than Virginia did over UMBC.
Not even that. If you go back and look at this, we covered it a couple episodes ago, but FDU lost to Merrimack in their conference championship. They lost to Merrimack in their conference championship. They were supposed to be here, but Merrimack's ineligible for the tournament. So when you look at all the rankings and stuff that all these metrics put out, Fairleigh Dickinson, out of all the teams in the tournament, was last. They were seed number 68. Their conference, in all the conferences ranked, was last out of all conferences.
The conference had number 1 on March Madness game before.
Correct.
Like 0-31.
Yes. So that just puts in perspective how improbable this upset was.
Their head coach, a first-year head coach out of a Division II university, and brought 3 players up from said.
And he's already gone.
He is already gone. Yeah. But yeah, he's a Division II coach. He brought up a couple Division II players with him. Gosh, what a year for this team. I know I was sad to see them go in the second round when they fell to FAU.
I mean, personally, it was to be expected in the second round because one thing I want to mention about that game between Purdue and FDU, that game said more about Purdue losing it than FDU winning it, in my opinion. I mean, Purdue just had an ugly offensive performance in that game. Could not shoot the 3 to save their lives. And even, Edey is probably one of the best players in the entire country right now, and they just could not find a way to utilize him, which really surprised me because FDU did not have a player that was up to his size, I think up to his physicality, and yet they held him to 20. I mean, I guess held him to 21 points.
Dash, I'm actually going to disagree with you on a couple of those points. Yes, it did say more about Purdue, but something Cody and I talked about in the last couple of weeks here. I know we talked last week about which 1 seed did we think was going to go down first, and I said wholeheartedly Purdue's going to go down first. I don't know when, but they were going to be the first one to lose because I was the least impressed by them in their conference tournaments. I remember telling Cody that I thought Marquette should have been the one over them. Yep. I mean, so and I still stand by that. Even though Marquette lost in the second round, Marquette should have been the 1 seed, not Purdue. And as far as how that game went, I think they actually used Edey quite well. Edey had 25 points. It's not like he didn't have a good game or anything like that. He had a great game. But nobody else could shoot.
Figure it out. Yeah.
They shot a total. They made a total of 5 threes all game.
Late in the game, when they needed him to make shots, he wasn't able to.
It's because
they stopped giving him the ball.
Well, did you look how they were playing him though? They had 4 guys standing around Zach Edey because they knew none of their guards could make a 3-point shot.
That's my question.
Yeah, none of their guys could make a 3-point shot, so they had to try and get it into Edey. And when they did try and get it into him, they was always intercepted because there was 4 players around him.
Yes, they turned over the ball a ton of times.
Yes.
And, I mean, FDU's defensive plan, I'm sorry, but that was asking for a loss. You were leaving every single player wide open for shots, and Purdue just couldn't capitalize on it. They couldn't make shots. And when they tried to pass it, they would turn it over every single time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and then they made some really bad mistakes in the final couple of minutes. Something that I noticed also this weekend, I don't know if I mentioned this last week or not, but I don't like how Purdue's coach played out those final couple of minutes, both in this game and the Big Ten Championship. They made the same error, except they won the Big Ten Championship and lost this one. They had 3 timeouts going into the final 2.5 minutes of both games. And they did not use a single one of them until it was under 1.5 minutes. And in this game, they were down with under 1.5 minutes, and they just finally decided to use it instead of using it a little earlier when they were starting to get to a tipping point. I disagree with that.
They were down by a substantial amount in that game against FDU. Like they had a chance to tie it with a 3 late, and just never could.
No, yeah, it was at a standstill for score for a while because no one could make a shot. And then finally FDU makes a couple of shots and Purdue can't match it. So, Cody, what do you think?
It's also kind of to show you how high-ranking Big Ten teams usually fare in the tournament sometimes.
I will say one thing to you guys, though. You guys are wrong about that because Purdue does get the 1 seed because the Big Ten champion always gets the 1 seed.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I just
That-
I don't think that should be a bona fide thing.
That's an annoying thing from the committee. A Big Ten champion always will get a 1 seed, and that is somewhat annoying because there's been multiple times where a Big Ten team has a really good. They have a really good season, but they show weaknesses, and then they get a very high seed, and then just get obliterated in the first round or second round game. Michigan State lost to Middle Tennessee a while back, and I don't have any other examples off my head.
Ohio State lost to Oral Roberts.
Thank you. Yep, Ohio State, and it goes to show you that Big Ten is they have good basketball teams. It's just not their high rank basketball team. This year, it's probably Penn State or Michigan State. Michigan State's still in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who'd you say about last year, Nate?
Illinois, or maybe that was year before. One of the recently.
I don't remember. Yeah, who did they lose to?
I don't remember. I'd have to look that up.
I think they lost to the 8th seed or something.
Yeah.
In the second round.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of people last year said that last year was kind of one of the worst years for the Big Ten in the NCAA tournament, and I think they said that a lot just because they had. I want to say the Big Ten had 9 teams in the tournament last year, and I think only like 2 of them survived past. Was the first or second round, one of the 2. And this year, I would honestly say this year was worse because I felt going into the tournament, the Big Ten teams were the most susceptible to lose out of any of the major conferences. I felt like the Big Ten was going to do the worst.
The entire regular season. But I do want to say one thing about Purdue, though, as well, what makes this loss more painful. This is their 3rd straight March Madness loss when they were a 4th seed or higher, and they lost to a 13 seed or lower.
Yep.
I was going to say Purdue has a very good record when they're like a 7, 5, or 8. They usually get to the second round and then play their hearts out against a 1st seed or something. Or if they're the 5th seed, they'll make it to the Sweet 16 or Elite 8.
It makes you wonder if they're just overconfident when they have the higher seed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, speaking of the team that's remaining, Michigan State, I mean, they've had a good run so far. I did not expect them to beat Marquette. As I predicted last week that it was going to be that they were going to play Oral Roberts, which obviously that didn't happen. Duke dominated that game, and Oral Roberts couldn't shoot anything. But Michigan State is on a good roll here, so I'll be curious to see how they play in the Sweet 16 against Kansas State. I mean, Kansas State's a good team.
The other thing I will say, though, is somehow that one team from the Big Ten that usually is good somehow gets to the Final Four most of the times, though.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We'll see. There's a chance here to see potentially a Conference USA team in the Elite 8 or Final Four, which would be something. We haven't seen that in a while.
FAU, I mean, this has been probably their best year of basketball ever. Their first time ranked in the top 25, and now they made it to the Sweet 16. I mean, it's got to feel good right now for their program.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely their highest they've ever been.
I mean, while you were talking about Oral Roberts, yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I think we all expected that game. I mean, I don't know if we expected them to win that game. I mean, I feel like Duke, out of all the 5 seeds in this tournament, Duke was probably going to be the hardest one to go up against. But yeah, that was just definitely not what we were going to expect from one of the.
Don't score for the first 8 minutes in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, I just underestimated Duke's size. I didn't remember that they were that tall. And yeah, they got a lot of guys up around 7 foot, and I overestimated how good Connor Vanover was going to be against them. Unfortunately, this happens more often we'd like to admit against some of the mid-major teams against some of the high majors, especially when they don't get to play that kind of talent for the last couple of months. I mean, it doesn't always happen this way, but when it does, you kind of shake your head, especially for a team like Oral Roberts that won 30 games this year. So one of the highest points in their program's history, and they just kind of fall flat on their faces against Duke. So
I will tell you, Nate, at least you didn't lose $50. I had a coworker bet $50 on Oral Roberts.
This is why I don't bet money on games.
Yeah.
I don't gamble,
he was
people.
not happy.
I don't suggest you gamble. I just do this for fun.
Yeah. It's a lot more fun when you don't lose money, I will say.
If only we had money to lose. But anyway,
Yeah.
so one team that did get kind of lost in the folds here that I kind of want to talk about here is Louisiana. They almost pulled off the big upset against Tennessee in the first round, unfortunately, only losing by 3. And I think that's a team that, Cody, I think you had mentioned them before as a team.
Yeah, I heard that a lot of the people were announcing that their Tennessee should be on an upset watch because I think Tennessee lost one of their star players late in the season, and Louisiana was kind of on a cruise and just beating teams that they shouldn't have. But sadly, it didn't happen this time.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a little unfortunate there for Louisiana, but that it also brings up, kind of a surprise in my opinion. Like you said, and Cody, a lot of people had thought that Tennessee should be on upset watch. Instead, they find themselves in the Sweet 16. The exact opposite of that. Tennessee's typically not a team I think of that's going to do really well in the NCAA tournament, especially recently. So to see them as far as they are is kind of a surprise to me.
Well, being one of the final 3 teams from the SEC in the tournament, that's probably pretty good for them.
Yeah, program defining year. Mm-hmm. So, gosh, we should probably make our picks. I'll go first this time. Looking back at who I picked, I obviously had picked Oral Roberts and Marquette to be the Elite 8 representatives from the East. Well, obviously Oral Roberts isn't there. So instead, I'm actually, I'm going to pick the upset. As much as I just talked up Tennessee, I'm going to pick Florida Atlantic. The Conference USA team makes the Elite 8. And then I'm going to then pick on the other side, I'm going to pick Kansas State, the more predictable choice there. I think they're going to shut down any magic Michigan State has. But keep an eye because I think that'll be probably the best game of the two. I think that's going to be a really close one. Michigan State, for whatever reason, when they're a lower seed, like a 7 or an 8, they always play well in the tournament. They always
the first game on Thursday. Dang it.
Yeah, but and then in order to win this region, I'm going to then pick Kansas State. They are going to head to the Final Four. That's my updated predictions. Cody, you can go next.
I am going to say Michigan State and Florida Atlantic just both pulled off some upsets, very good upsets, and I'm saying they're going to do it again. Florida Atlantic will pull upset maybe by like a last-second 3 over Tennessee, and Michigan State will be beating Kansas State to get to the Elite 8, and then I'm sadly going to say, like I've said before, a Big Ten team somehow makes it to the Final Four, and that year it's going to be Michigan State.
All right, Dash, go ahead.
I do agree with you, Cody, on who's going to the Final Four, but however, who's going to be in the Elite 8, I'd have to disagree. So I do think that Michigan State's going to beat Kansas State. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think Michigan's going to pull it off. And then meanwhile, I'm sorry. There's very few games in March Madness that I can confidently say that something's going to happen. I will say that Tennessee should be able to handle Florida Atlantic pretty easily. So
give me some
hope.
hope. Tennessee. Stop bringing my hope down.
I think you guys are riding that upset hype train a little bit too much there. I think you need to pump the brakes a little bit.
I want chaos.
And then meanwhile, I do agree though. I do think that Michigan State will beat Tennessee in the Elite 8, and I think Michigan State's going to make a surprise run to the Final Four.
Gosh, yeah, that'll be a weird one if that happens. Not the first time though. So, yeah, I think we'll save
there, Cody. Gives you tights.
Thank you.
I think we'll save national title picks for next week, but yeah, guys. Any final thoughts on the tournament or anything here?
I have high hopes.
I'm glad the one game that I really paid attention to happened to be the 1 versus 16 upset. So I'm glad that I got to see the whole game there.
I was somewhat disappointed. I didn't get to watch much of it, but I got the tail end of it. But I would say I had kind of a more memorable memory with UMBC's big upset because I was at first watching a different game, and then I saw UMBC was winning, and I was like, Dad, switch it over to that one. And we started watching it with like 10 minutes left, and they never lost that lead. And I kept texting my friends during high school going like, are you guys watching this? And I made like 5 people turn on the game to see it happen themselves. So that was kind of a fun memory.
Wish you could have messaged me. I never got to see that live when it happened.
If I knew you, I probably would have.
Yeah, but gosh, I mean, at least on Purdue's hand this year, at least it was a close game. Was not like it was a blowout like Virginia and UMBC was. That was even more shocking about that one. It was such a blowout. But
I will say honestly, we should have had 2 1 seeds go down. I will take that to my grave. That Houston should have lost to Northern Kentucky, and
we did have 2 1 seeds go down already.
Well, he's meaning in the first round.
No, same
got
year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, we should have had Houston go down as well this year. I mean, Northern Kentucky should have beat them, but Houston kind of got lucky in that one.
Yeah, well, we'll see if they can take themselves a little further or if they come up short.
Well, I'm gonna say my championship pick here is gonna be Xavier versus Michigan State, and then I'm gonna have it Xavier win it all. So.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna save my picks for next week, like I said I was going to.
I just wanted to say mine.
All right, guys, you got anything else here before we sign off?
Cody doesn't like to follow schedules.
Nope.
No, he doesn't. Cody's never on schedule.
He goes to the beat of his own horn.
Yep. Which turns out very wrong sometimes.
All right, well, that'll do it today from us here at Northern Lights Sportscast. Thank you all for watching, and make sure you tune in next week when we talk about the Final Four. Have a nice day, everybody.
Bye-bye.